Hi, my name is Blake Suttle, and thank you for watching the TotalScope application demo. In this video, we're going to be taking you through the application that you can use on site to properly scope out any new roof project that you have, so that way our team can get the correct information and write you the most accurate estimate possible. Now, to begin, the first thing you're going to see when you open the app is the home page. To start a new project, you will want to click on that new roof scope button at the top. Once you go in there, it's just going to ask you for your basic homeowner information, last name, first name, address, contact information. Once you've put in the basic customer information, it will ask you if this is a single family home or a commercial project. The single family selection refers to your standard residence that will house one family. Duplex will also work for this due to the size. If you select commercial or multifamily, that refers to the larger, typically flat roof structures or townhome or apartment complexes where it's a much more complicated and larger project. If you select the commercial, we do not have that side of the application built out just yet, but we can write those estimates for you. Just please reach out to us directly to make sure we can get all the information we need. The next option to select is what structure are we working on. Some properties have multiple structures on them, such as a barn or detached garage or pool house, anything along those lines. If we are not working with the primary structure, use this option to just name whatever structure we're working on, so that way we know specifically what area of the property that we're going to be dealing with for this estimate. Next up, what building department does this property fall under? This is not a required piece of information. We can look this up on our own after you submit the estimate to us. However, if you already know specifically which building department will be in effect for this area, it can save us a few minutes of time looking it up on our own. So it's not required, but if you know, feel free to put that information in there. Once you're through all of this, take a picture of the front of the home in the app so that way we can see what we're working with, and then at the bottom click Create New File and we're on our way. The first piece of information we'll ask you about is what kind of decking is existing on the roof. Hopefully you should be able to see this once you're on your ladder at the eave of the roof. You can pull up the shingles and the felt there and see what is existing, whether it's going to be just OSB or plywood or plank decking. This is very important for us to know because if a project does require a redeck, that is typically several thousands of dollars of work that we need to account for. So that's why this is one of the very first and most important things that we need to know. If you can't see this decking from the eave line, you may need to go ask the homeowner to get inside their attic to get that photo and verify what kind of decking is required. If you do need to get into the attic, it's a pretty quick and easy thing to spot, so just take that extra 2-3 minutes, get that done, and save yourself a lot of money. When you are selecting the decking type, we ask whether it is plank decking, spaced decking, or plywood/OSB. Plank decking means that the roof deck is made up of typically 1x6 or 1x8 inch boards that are tightly placed together with less than a quarter or less than an 1/8 inch of a gap between. Spaced decking is typically only seen on older wood shake roofs, and that also uses probably 1x4 inch or maybe some 1x6 inch boards, but they have a solid 2 to 3 inch gap in between each board. Make sure to always verify what kind of decking exists on a project, because it can mean the difference between a $10,000 claim or a $15,000 claim. The next page of the app is just going to ask you for what sort of roofing material is existing and how many layers. So this is pretty simple. Just click on the selection, scroll through to find what the most accurate one is, and then fill out the information. If you have any questions about any of these selections, there are these little I buttons next to each line that if you click on, it will explain exactly what we're looking for. If you do have multiple layers of shingles up on the roof, please make a note of what each layer is. A lot of times you'll see roofs with one layer of 3-tab and one layer of laminate, or wood shakes on the bottom with a 3-tab on top. please in the memo write exactly what they are so that way we can get it accurately accounted for within our estimate. Once you're done with this page, please make sure to take a photo clearly showing how many layers are on the roof as well as what type of material is existing on the top, because that is what will matter for the insurance company when you go back to replace. When you're taking a photo to show the layers, make sure to take it from the edge of the shingles so that way we can clearly count however many may be on there, as well as the starter strip. Sometimes if it is rather confusing, it may help to have something to stick in between each layer to clearly delineate top layer from the middle layer from the bottom layer. The end goal of this is to make it very clear with no doubts whatsoever that we can see how many layers are on this and no one can argue, oh no, there's only 2 when there's actually 3. So make sure when you take these photos, it is very clear and very obvious that you are covering exactly how many layers are on the roof. On the next page, we are looking for the roof specifications. This is going to start getting into the details of the roof. When we're asking about the eave flashing, rake flashing, that's your gutter apron, and drip edge with starter existing. So we'll just go down this page and fill out all that information. If you have any questions, once again, about any specific items, they have that I button right next to them that you can hit that will bring up a description of precisely what we're looking for and a photo as well. For the existing ridge type selection, that's going to ask you for either a low or high profile ridge type. The low profile ridge is going to typically be very, very smooth. There's not going to be any definition in between each ridge cap. The high profile ridge is more defined and has a raised edge at the lower end of it, which will make it just pop a little bit more. It is a more expensive material, so that's why we need to know specifically which one that the roof has. For the existing underlayments type, we do ask how many layers are existing, because if your crew has to tear off more than 2 layers of roofing felt, then that is additional labor that we need to account for within the estimate, and we want to get you guys paid for that. So if you can spot that there are multiple layers of felt existing, once again, please get a good photo of it, clearly delineate between the different layers, so that way we can easily show layer 1, layer 2, layer 3 in one photo, and that way we can get you paid for it very easily. So next we ask about the ice and water shield. If it is existing at the eave, please select yes, and then we fill out how many courses are existing. So ice and water shield comes in 3-foot rolls. So 1 course of ice and water shield means it will go 3 feet up the roof. So if there are 2 courses of ice and water shield existing, then that means that ice and water shield would extend 6 feet up from the eave of that roof. The reason why we ask how many courses is, once again, insurance will owe for what is existing, so we want to accurately account for that within our estimate. If ice and water shield is not already existing, we ask for that soffit depth, because to meet code we have to reach 24 inches inside the warm wall of the structure where ice and water shield is required. And to properly calculate how much ice and water shield will be needed, we need to know how far out that eave line, that soffit, overhangs, so we can properly set the distance to reach inside that warm wall. Next up, we ask what sort of valley material is existing. This is very important that you check on every roof you do, because this is a common item missed by insurance adjusters. They rarely go and pull up the valley to see what's existing. So when you have a roof that has a valley, make sure to go to the edge of it, pull up those shingles and see what's existing, and take a good photo of it. As long as you get that photo, we can have it thrown in the estimate. It'll get paid for every single time. The head wall action selection refers to what are you guys going to be doing with the head wall flashing on the roof. Detach and reset or replace. For the sidewall flashing, that refers to your step flashing or L flashing that you'll find at these sidewalls. And just yes or no, we have encountered many roofs that did not have it existing before, so that's why we're asking the yes or no there. But afterwards, for kick-out diverters, it refers to the final piece of step flashing at the bottom end of any sidewall run. Ever since the 2009 IRC or later, they are required by code to be installed. They can be manufactured manufactured by your labor crew, or you can purchase prefabricated kickout diverters. However, they are incredibly simple. It's essentially just one piece of step flashing that has been cut and bent to divert water out away from that sidewall at the end of the step flashing run. Since this is required by code, we ask you to count how many areas on the roof that this would be needed. So we're not asking how many exist, we're asking how many different runs of step flashing need these kickout diverters at the end of them. So while you're on the roof, please get a count of that, put it in there, and take a photo. The next option is for rain diverters. This refers to any strip of metal up on the roof that is typically either interlaced with the shingles or shakes or whatever material is up there to just divert rain away from a specific section of eave. If you're wondering what that looks like, we do have that info button there that'll show you a good picture of what we're talking about. For this, all you need to do is count how many are on the roof, put in the number, and once again, don't forget to take a photo. The next option is to check for counter flashing. If you are working on a home that has stucco or masonry siding, most of the time you're going to see counter flashing at either the sidewalls or the head walls. In this scenario, we're asking for the total linear feet of counter flashing that we're going to need to work with. So please make sure to get a measurement, and once again, please get a photo. The final selection on this page is asking whether or not beauty strip is existing. Beauty strip is made up of cut shingles to cover the head wall flashing on the roof slope. Some houses have it, some don't. However, since this does take extra shingles and extra labor for your crew to complete, this is something that needs to be accounted for within our estimate. So if it does exist, please take a photo of it and we'll make sure to get it accounted for in our estimate for you. Before you move on, open up that photo application and make sure to take good photographs of every option that we just went through on this page. I can't stress enough how important it is to get as many photos as you can. When you don't send us any photos, we can't help to substantiate anything that is actually on the roof or anything that we're asking about. So that's why we always need and always emphasize that we need to get as many photos as possible to properly account for everything that we're going to be working with. The next page will be asking about the ventilation and roof penetrations that you're going to be seeing. Turtle vents refers to your standard passive attic ventilation. They can be your box vents or your slant backs. Turbine vents are your whirlybirds. Power vents will be the ones that require electricity. And then your ridge vents. Please just double check what's existing on the roof and input that information. So for these selections, once you put in a number, further options are going to appear. So for turtle vents, if there are say 5 on the roof, once you input 5, then the action selection will come up and are they painted will come up. So the options will be detach and reset or replace, and then just mark if they have been painted or not. If nothing exists and you put a 0, say if there are no turbine vents on the roof, then these options won't appear and you don't have to worry about filling it out. Once you get down to off-ridge vents, what we are referring to when we ask for those is essentially any sort of passive attic ventilation for intake or exhaust that is not your standard turtle vent, power vent, whirlybird, or ridge vent. So these are going to be your O'Hagan vents. They're going to be your 8-foot long, large metal intake vents towards the eave line. Any of those unusual, out of the norm scenarios where you've got these unusual vents up on your roof, count them if they exist and make sure to take good photos so that way we can properly add them into the estimate. So once you get through the standard ventilation questions, the next on the list is your pipe jacks, your plumbing vents. So for these, we do ask if there are any pipe jacks less than 4 inches in diameter or greater than 4 inches in diameter, as those use 2 different sizes of flashing. So that's why we ask for the 2 different sizes. Just count how many of each are on there, input the information, and move on to the next. After pipe jacks are your exhaust caps. So these are your bathroom vents, your kitchen vents, anything that's connected to, the ducting in the attic that'll go down to one of those fans. There are a wide variety of exhaust caps, and they sometimes can be rather tough to identify because they can look a lot like a furnace vent. The newer exhaust caps are your small black Broan vents with a flapper inside of them. The older exhaust caps are where you're going to see a wide variety of options of what they can be. Some Sometimes they'll be on stacks from 12 to 18 inches up out of the roof deck with weird caps on top of them. Other times they'll just look almost identical to a turtle vent. So they can be rather tough to identify. We do ask you to do your best to properly count them because there is a good price difference in Xactimate between exhaust caps and turtle vents, and we want to make sure that you're getting paid accurately for the work that you need to do. After the exhaust caps are how many furnace vents are on the roof. Furnace vents are easy to identify because they will be on stacks coming out of the roof deck, and in most areas code requires them to extend above the ridge line of the roof. Most of the time they'll already be placed close to the ridge, but that's one thing to keep an eye out for, and one easy way to identify the difference between those older exhaust caps and a furnace vent is that the furnace vent will always need to extend above that ridge line. So just count how many are up there on that roof and fill out the information. The final question for this page is, are any additional vents needed for the roof? The standard attic ventilation code guideline states that you should have one passive attic vent for roughly every 300 square feet of ventilating attic space. So if you get up on the roof and can immediately tell that there's not enough ventilation, please feel free to say yes and we can help calculate precisely what it should be. One thing to keep in mind when thinking about this is that if the home has any vaulted ceilings, that doesn't contribute towards ventilated attic space. So we can't account for that area of the home wherever there's a vaulted ceiling towards the ventilating space. In that scenario, make sure to double check that so that way we can get everything accurately accounted for. Finally, at the bottom of this page again is the option to take pictures. Take very good pictures of each and every option from this page that exists on the roof you're scoping. Close-ups, overviews, show how many vents are in there, try and capture them all in one photo, try to get some close-ups. Once again, you can't go wrong with taking too many photos, that only helps our case. So make sure to get good documentation. The next page of the app will ask you for information on the existing chimneys. All we're looking for is a length and width measurement, so make sure to have your tape measure with you. And then, is a cricket existing? A chimney cricket is when the roof is built to an angle above that chimney to divert water to each side as opposed to just running into the top side of the chimney. Crickets are only required when that ridge facing side of the chimney is greater than 30 inches. So that is why we need to know not only the length and width of it, but then whether or not that cricket is existing, because you may need to build one out when you do this re-roof. So make sure to get that measurement, get a good photo of it, and we'll make sure that everything gets accounted for. Once you are done with the chimneys, the next page will ask you about how high the roof is, what the pitch is, and if there are any access issues. So the first question is telemetry available? And when we say telemetry, what we're referring to is an eagle view or roof scope or hover report, anything that's going to show us the measurements of the roof. Sometimes when you get way out from the major cities, you're going to run into instances where eagle views aren't available for the roof, or if there's any other reason why we can't get that measurement report, that means you are going to have to hand measure this roof so that way we can properly account for the total area. If you can get an eagle view or a measurement report for the property, just select yes in that option right there, and all those measurement questions below it will be taken out of the app and you don't have to worry about filling them out. The next question is any part of the roof high squares? What we are referring to there is second story. Insurance companies, when they're looking to add in that high roof charge to their estimate, are typically looking for one that needs either a 2-story ladder to reach it in the first place, or if you need to do a double pull, which means pull a ladder up onto a 1st-story roof in order to reach that 2nd-story roof. So that is the standard that most insurance companies are going by. However, what we are asking for is if any part of this house is 2nd story, and if it is, make sure to get a good picture showing from the ground that it is indeed 2 stories up off the ground, and we can make that argument to get it covered for you. So next up, we ask you about gable cornice returns. So gable cornice returns are areas at the end of the rake where the roofing will wrap around the corner and onto the siding of the home. Please look at the photo that we've included under that I button to show you exactly what I'm referring to. This has been getting better in recent years. Insurance adjusters are learning what those are, but many people still do not know what those are and what they mean. Gable cornice returns represent a lot of additional labor and time for your crew to take care of because it can only be done from a ladder. Please make sure to get a good count and good photos of these gable cornice returns because they represent a lot of money in Xactimate that you need to get paid for, since your crew does have to do that extra work and that extra time to get those properly replaced when you do the roof. So a gable cornice strip is very similar to a gable cornice return, except in this instance the shingled area will run all the way across the siding to the other rake edge of the other roof slope. This is the same scenario as those gable cornice returns. These things require a lot of extra labor and time to complete, and typically they will not be accounted for on your Eagle View. Eagle View doesn't see these because they're so close into the home. So make sure to get good photos of this and tell us how many linear feet of a gable cornice strip exists, so that way we can get you paid for it. Once you're through the gable cornice returns and gable cornice strips, we're going to ask you about access issues. So first question is easy dumpster access. Can your crew pull their dump trailer, or can you drop your dumpster directly alongside the home to the point where the crew can throw the debris from the roof directly into the dumpster? If they can't, then that means there is not easy dumpster access and your crew is going to have to hand carry debris. This is additional time, labor, and cost to you as a contractor. So when that's the scenario, we need to make sure that you get paid extra from the insurance company to cover those costs. So if that is the case where you cannot pull the dumpster alongside the home, select no for this option and then explain in the notes underneath exactly why that dumpster can't reach the home. Take photos to show why that's the scenario, and that way we can get that added into the estimate and get you paid for it. So after the dumpster access, we're asking if the suppliers can roof load the shingles to your home. If there's anything preventing them from roof loading, such as trees, power lines, or if your supplier in that for your region just doesn't have boom trucks and that's not the industry practice for your city, select no and just once again explain in the notes precisely why the supplier is not going to be able to roof load. Make sure to take photos of anything that could prevent the supplier from doing that roof load so we can add that into the estimate and make sure that we have a good argument to get that paid for. The next page is going to ask you for any random accessories that you'll find on the roof. This is going to be your satellite dish, your swamp coolers, TV antennas, solar panels. So the first question is going to be, is a satellite existing on the roof? Next, swamp cooler, TV antenna, meter mast. The meter mast refers to where the electrical connection will come in from the pole to the mast on the roof and down through. Typically this is where you need to install a split boot, as you can't just slide a pipe jack flashing up and down this. Finally, solar panels. Count how many are existing on the roof and make sure to get good photographs of any of these items if they exist on the roof. And with that, you are almost done. Final page here is where you can take miscellaneous pictures of the home of anything else that we need to take into account. So if there's a weather vane that the app didn't ask for, or a basketball hoop, or any other unusual thing that has to do with the roof that your crew, that your guys are going to have to mess with, make sure to get good photos of it so that way we can add it into the estimate. This can include tree trimming if trees are laying on top of the roof, any unusual scenario that you come into. Once again, more pictures, the better. We will never complain if you take too many photos on a file. Next is upload miscellaneous files. If you already have your insurance paperwork or your measurement report or any other document that you feel needs to be uploaded, you can do it from the app. Just select that upload miscellaneous file and you'll be able to find your PDF on the phone and just put it right in the file from there. Finally, we have the scan file to PDF. So if you have a physical copy of that, measurement report or insurance paperwork, you can scan it directly into your file through this function in the app. At the bottom of this page, you'll see the Add Structure button. So if this is a residence where you have your primary house and then say you have a big detached garage with a mother-in-law suite on it that has its own set of turtle vents and pipe jacks and everything, we do need you to fill out a completely separate roof scope for that second structure. However, we don't want you to start a whole new file for it. So in this instance, you can just hit Add Structure at the bottom of this page, and it's going to take you back to the beginning of this process, and you just run through this exact same thing for that second building, and it will all be included in the same file. It doesn't matter how many structures the property may have. So if you're dealing with a ranch scenario where you've got the main house, guest house, barn, workshop, something with 4 or 5 different structures on it, that's fine. You can just keep adding structures in at the end of this app. So that way everything for this project will be located in one spot for easy access. Once you're done with everything there, you just hit complete file at the bottom, and you have finished walking through the app. You have accurately scoped your roof, and it is just about ready to be sent over for us to write our estimate. It has not been submitted to us for an estimate just yet. You still need to go to our web portal and finish the file from there. Now you have accurately scoped your roof, you know everything is correct within that app, and you've taken those good photos, so you shouldn't need to come back out to the house again to double check. Once again, my name is Blake Suttle. Thank you very much for watching this TotalScope application demo. And if you have any further questions or want any more clarification, please feel free to reach out to us at any time.